Next up, we have Western Yilgarn, trading under the ASX code WYX with a market capitalization of $2.5 million. Western Yilgarn is working towards establishing itself as a leading mineral explorer and developer with a diversified portfolio of assets located in premier mining jurisdictions. Presenting for the company today, we have Craig Moulton, the managing consultant. Craig, welcome, and please take it away.
Thank you, Peter. Look, appreciate the opportunity to talk about Western Yilgarn today. I'm just going to focus quite specifically on our flagship project, which is called the Ida Homes project. We're really excited. We've just identified some new copper potential in some fairly uncharted ground. So on the next slide, I'll just go through usual disclaimers. This presentation will be on our website and published on the ASX today. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So here, this is the location. The flashing arrow is where the Ida Homes project is, located just below the road that goes from Mount Magnet to Leinster. So it's obviously a very good address in terms of mining in Western Australia. As I say, today I'll just focus on the Ida Homes project and our new copper targets. Specifically, I want to go through three things. One, which is some of these new copper and PGE or platinum group elements, platinum, palladium, gold, etc. At Hell's Gate and Mount Holmes. We've just recently identified, following an airborne electromagnetic survey or TEM survey, a 1.15 long continuous conductor. We're interested in conductors because that indicates the presence of massive sulfides. Massive sulfides is obviously pathway to mineralization. And then also I'd like to give you a brief update on the ongoing work we have on our copper, nickel and lithium geochemistry targets. If I do have some time at the end, I'll briefly touch on our Boudinot and Julimar projects, which you can see also on the map here. So on the next slide, we are going to dive down now into the Ida Homes project. And as I was saying before, the green coloured areas on this map are what we call greenstones. They're typically where most of the gold exploration companies and nickel exploration companies and mining companies are focused. Our concept here is quite bold and with delivering success. So you can see we've now got a very large tenement package. We've secured over 1,300 square kilometres, 18 contiguous tenements, and we've done that through either application or some very low-cost joint ventures with companies such as Fleet Street, Peregrine, and Bell Park. We've drilled over 5,000 auger holes, and we've flown over 1,800 line kilometres of airborne EM. And we also have two new prospects that are up and coming. I won't get a chance to talk about them today, but one, Mount Alexander, down the bottom of the map, which came with the Bell Pike joint venture, excellent lithium target. And we've recently applied for Mount Ida South, which has been previously explored by BHP. But as I said, today I want to focus on these new copper targets. The style of this mineralization is, for those familiar with the large world-class Nebo-Babel deposit, so copper, PGE, plus or minus nickel. We're looking at three at the moment. We've got two more coming through in the portfolio. I'll then have a look at this very large conductor at the Ida Homes Junction, which is the yellow section of tenements on the map there, and plus the new copper and lithium geochemistry targets as well. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to drop down further into the Ida Homes project, and you can see the red arrows there. Hopefully the resolution is good enough on your screen, but what we can see, the background image shows aeromagnetics, and under the 5 pink circles, we have areas of complexity in the magnetic signature. And as we look more closely, we'll actually see what the explanation for this is. The light green outline line is actually called the Mount Holmes Dyke. It's a well-known feature. It was formed a long time ago in the Neoproterozoic, so just after the Archean. So we're talking about the transition of the planet from not having any oxygen in the atmosphere into the first signs of life. The Mount Holmes Dyke is part of the Warracoona Large Igneous Complex, which is a massive igneous event that occurred across the Craton. It was dated independently by the GSWA or the Geo Survey, who have dated this as part of that complex. Now, this means this magma is the same source and the same magma that's formed Nebo-Babel. The style of mineralization, which we call layered intrusives, you can see, or they're defined by layers of different concentrations of magma as they cool. This dike, and dike just means basically a vertical or subvertical intrusive feature, which we can see here. Is what we call a theolytic ferrogabbro. So basically, it's a gabbro or an amorphic rock that is very high in iron, titanium, vanadium. But it also, when we look at the geochemistry of this dike, it has depleted chrome, manganese, and nickel. Why do we care about that? Well, a couple of reasons. One, when we study these large layered intrusives, they tend to have the high titanium, vanadium on the top, and then they form the metal base metal sulfides, nickel, copper, etc., on the bottom. And the fact that they're depleted in nickel, magnesium, chromium typically means that the sulfides have dropped out, and that we're seeing, or there is in some area, some of these ultramafic cumulates, which will be then responsible for concentrating them at the base of the sill. So let's move on to the next slide, please. What I was going to say before, and I'll say it on this slide, is that why the sulfides drop out is because we have a transition of energy. So we have the magma moving through the narrow dikes. As it then comes up and basically spreads out into the sill, we have a drop of energy, and it's that energy change that results in the heavier nickel copper sulfides actually dropping out into these sills. What we're seeing here, though, which was somewhat unexpected, is we're seeing a much more dominant copper signature than we are nickel. We've done a lot of detailed geochemistry. In these, the data you can see on the screen now, the top left is actually the empirical lithology or rock type indicated by the chemical analysis. And you can see very discreetly within the three circles, we see these green dots or green triangles. The dot versus triangle is just the different method of analysis. The circles are basically detailed wet chemistry, and the triangles use a method called portable XRF. We'll leave that for the minute. What it's telling us, the green dots, is we're talking about mafic or ultramafic rocks. The other interesting point, though, is when we start to look at the copper anomalism, which is the bottom image, the bottom left image, we can see very discrete, very well-defined copper anomalies within these areas, within these sills. And these aren't small values. We're talking about the red dots being more than 280 ppm copper. The pink dots are over 495 ppm copper. As a rule of thumb, in soil analysis like this, if you're looking for a copper porphyry, anything over 100 ppm would be of interest. So these, not only are they very discrete, they sit exactly on top of where we would expect them to, but they're also very elevated values given the level of samples and the type of samples. When we look at the platinum group elements, in this case, this is platinum, but the palladium graph looks exactly the same. We can once again see very discrete anomalies. When I was talking about the different types of data, we can't get platinum in the portable XRF, so the first thing we'll do shortly is to send those samples off for what we call fire assay, so we can get the remaining platinum, palladium, and gold analyses. But we can already see that there's a very high level of concentration and anomalism in these for platinum, palladium, gold, but they are actually offset to the copper. And once again, this just reinforces that there is layering within these sills, which is exactly what we want to see. So if we go on to the next slide, we're moving to the east now. So this is the Mount Holmes, and this just gives a really good example. This is really quite a large sill. You can see the dike coming through, and the sill is outlined there. This tenement has had absolutely no exploration done on it to date, apart from a couple of rock chip samples. You can see out in the field, there's some granite sitting on the surface, which is the lighter coloured reds and yellows, and then this very large sill, theolytic sill, sitting underneath. That's exactly what we want to see. So this is coming up in the portfolio. This is we've got 2 targets like this, and that we haven't even started working on top of the 3 that we already started to work up. So if we can go on to the next slide. I'd now like to move further to the east. This is the Ida Holmes Junction project, or prospect rather. And so the other prospects we were looking at was just to the west of us. We can see the Mount Holmes Dyke labelled in green there coming through the project. And this white line, I don't know if you can see it very well on your screen, which is roughly north-south, is the Mount Ida fault, which is a deep, large cratonic scale fault. And so it's called the Ida Holmes Junction prospect because it's the junction of where the dike and this fault intersect. What's really interesting here is that BHP and St. George have done work on this previously. It was called the Hawaii Project. They focused on the northern part of this magnetic anomaly. You can see all the white labels, which is their drill holes. Unfortunately for them, they didn't drill far enough south. We've just recently flown this airborne TEM survey, which identifies conductors looking for metal sulfides. That's the purple horizontal lines. And this 1.15 long kilometre anomaly starts literally at the end and goes to the south beyond their drilling. So they never found it. Noting that a lot of their drill holes were actually very shallow. So if we can, we'll be testing this shortly with some RC drilling once we've done some ground EM. If we can move to the next slide. I won't spend much time on this, but this is some further geochemistry that we've done. These are unique, discrete geochemical anomalies which need further investigation. We'll be doing some air core drilling, same prospect, different part of the area. This is for copper. If we look at the next slide, we can see some very large and high quantum lithium targets as well. So if we can move on to the next slide to wrap up. I'll skip through Boudinot and I'll skip through the next slide for Julimar West as well. So the value opportunity with Western Yilgarn, we've got an extensive drilling target inventory. I've been through all of those. All of our work strategy and exploration is based on systematic data-driven analysis. We've got a tight capital structure of around 100 million shares with good high net worth support. So when this good news starts to flow through, we should see a re-rate of the stock. So I'd invite you to join us on this journey. Thank you.
Craig, thank you. Just on your news flow, I just wanted to bring up your recent news flow at Ida Homes with several new targets identified. Do you just want to explain this in more detail and explain what this means for you guys?
But this is this has happened recently. We've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort collecting the data. And in the last 6 weeks, with the help of some very highly regarded consultants, geophysicists, geochemists, etc., we've been working this data up, working it through the models. And the data is telling us what the prospectivity is, and that's how it should be. And so whilst we were largely focused on nickel copper, this is telling us that the prospectivity here is actually more looking like copper PGEs, and this is a radical change, but very, very exciting and potentially, world-class discovery if these models play out.
And can you explain the timeline at Ida Homes?
Sure. So as I say, we literally got the initial analysis out now. So the next stage, shortly after this presentation today, we're going into a detailed planning phase. And our aim is to be drilling these projects, initially air core, and then followed by some RC before the end of the year.
Perfect. And then just lastly, you've recently announced a strategic partnership with Bell Park Minerals. Can you just explain the terms of the agreement, and then can you explain what the benefits are of this agreement?
Look, I won't go through the details you can see that on the actual announcement, but I think the key here with this is it's a low-cost farm in. All of our money that is required as part of this joint venture is about putting dollars into the ground, so there's no cash involved. It really brings that consolidation of the ground. It's a massive part of that Mount Holmes Dyke, but it also brings the Mount Alexander, which is a small tenement, but really highly prospective for lithium. So it also has some upside for Bell Park as well. They retain a small stake, about 30%. Bringing that together is a win-win for everybody, both for our shareholders and for theirs.
Craig, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Peter.